I'm Liyana Hassanel, and this is Nightline. The top stories. Wealthy gangs conspiring against me to topple unity government, says PM. And MOTAC Minister defends himself, claims culture of corruption among immigration officers. Good morning. Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim claimed that wealthy gangs are conspiring against him to bring down the unity government. The Prime Minister revealed that he has received threats from these individuals who have plundered billions of ringgit from the country as he had intensified his battle against corruption and abuse of power.
Macam-macam ugutan saya terima. Geng-geng yang kaya-raya ni dah berpakat. Saya tak ada masalah. Itu kerja dia. Yang geng-geng yang penyakau besar beliau-beliau ni pakat sekarang ni. Nak buat hidup Melayu dan sebagainya. Buatlah. Saya tentang lawan, tetap lawan. Untuk pertahankan prinsip ini.
Datuk Seri Anwar said this at a kurban ceremony at Masjid Jami' An-Nur Guar Perahu in Permatang Pau, Pulau Pinang on Friday. He also stressed that he was willing to be investigated by any relevant authorities if he is suspected to be involved in corruption and misuse of power to enrich his family. At the same time, Datuk Seri Anwar denied that he was seeking revenge by taking action against certain leaders for graft. He reiterated that he had never directed the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, to investigate these individuals. Instead, it was just the commission doing its job. The Prime Minister also urged the people to fairly analyse all sorts of slander being spewed against his administration. He said they could listen to these allegations, but they must know how to differentiate between slander and political attacks. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Anwar said a win for the unity government in the upcoming state elections will save the country from religious bigotry. The Prime Minister pointed out, unlike parties in the federal government, which practiced tolerance and unity, the racial and religious sentiments harped by the opposition were no mere political narratives, but were dangerous for the country.
This narrative about Green Wave is about also the failure to address some of the concerns. Number two, the failure to counter effectively the incessant propaganda using the race card and religious bigotry. And I've explained some really nonsensical issues being brought up by past leaders, like that Prophet Adam landed in Gunung Jerai, and nobody questioned, not even the so-called ulama of past. What's wrong with this country?
The Pakatan Harapan chairman also said when criticism was levelled at PAS, the party would accuse its opponents of being enemies to Islam. He added that he had informed his colleagues in PH and UMNO to counter such issues that incite racial and religious hatred. The government will introduce an e-credit initiative to ease the financial burden of students at public institutions of higher learning, IPTA, especially from Sabah and Sarawak, to buy affordable flight tickets. Transport Minister Anthony Loke on Friday said the assistance, which will enable them to return to their respective hometowns during festive or semester breaks, will be implemented in August and is expected to be launched before this year's National Day celebration. According to Loke, the assistance will be credited to the students' respective accounts to purchase flight tickets, and it will be more cost-effective if there are discounts available. He also said the system is currently being developed and in the process of integration with the airlines involved. He explained that the credit is not to be used once and for all, but it depends on the flight ticket itself. Further details on the initiative, which is expected to benefit about 50,000 students, will be announced later. Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah has expressed hope that Malaysia and Saudi Arabia will further enhance and strengthen their bilateral relations and unity of the Ummah. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong said this at the high tea ceremony hosted by Saudi Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman in Mina on Thursday. In a post on the Istana Negara's Facebook on Friday, Al Sultan Abdullah exchanged views with Crown Prince Mohammed on various matters, including the bilateral relations that have been closely and specially established between the two countries. The king also congratulated the Crown Prince on the kingdom's thorough preparation and success in hosting 2 million pilgrims for this year's Hajj season, the largest turnout since the COVID-19 pandemic. The meeting was also a manifestation of the close relations between the Malaysia and Saudi Arabia. Also in attendance was the Regent of Pahang, Tengku Hassanel Ibrahim Alam Shah. Datuk Seri Tiong King Sing has clapped back at accusations alleging he had caused a commotion at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, KLIA. The Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister claimed that his presence at the airport was to expose the alleged culture of corruption among a number of Immigration Department officers in handling foreign visitors at the Terminal 1 arrival hall. Referring to a report and an accompanying photograph released by a news portal on the incident, Datuk Seri Tiong, in a statement on Friday, admitted that he was the person in question. However, he denied he had barged into the arrival hall without a pass and had sought the release of a female tourist from China who was detained by immigration authorities on Thursday, as mentioned in the report. He explained he had no power to demand the release of the tourist, adding that he was well aware of his limits as doing so would only damage his reputation as a minister. According to Datuk Seri Tiong, he had learned that certain immigration officers were charging as much as 3,000 ringgit to release travellers they had detained and around 12,000 ringgit for the cost of processing a visa. He also said he will raise the matter to the cabinet, including the proposal to do away with the agent that handles foreign tourists who are refused entry into the country. Datuk Seri Tiong also shared a picture of his KLIA pass, which is still valid until February next year. Meanwhile, Transport Minister Anthony Loke said authorities are investigating the alleged commotion. So far, he has yet to receive any report. However, he will leave it to the airport authorities to conduct a detailed probe on the matter. In a separate statement, Immigration Department Director General Datuk Roslin Jusoh said the department has taken immediate action by investigating the incident. He added that the probe will be conducted comprehensively and transparently from all angles. He also urged the public not to make any speculation or provocation that can affect the investigation. The government is studying a proposal to place carbon trading under the Plantation Industries and Commodities Ministry. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadilah Yusof said currently the government is discussing whether carbon storage and carbon trading can be separated and placed under his ministry.
Sesuai dengan apa yang ditakrifkan di bawah United Nations ESG, carbon adalah dikirakan sekarang ini sebagai komoditi. Jadi ini sedang diperincikan.
He told this to reporters after attending the Idul Adha Korban program in Kuching, Sarawak on Friday. Datuk Seri Fadilah, however, said the effort to place carbon trading under his ministry was expected to take some time, as it would require some changes to the law and policies at the federal level. Currently, all issues related to carbon are under the jurisdiction of the Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change Ministry. The funder of the 8 Sulu claimants is believed to be from the United States. According to Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Law and Institutional Reforms, Datuk Seri Azalina Othman Said, the Cabinet has been informed on the matter, but a further probe was needed.
Ada bukti tapi dia tak menyeluruh, jadi kita nak betul-betul mengesahkan. Tapi banyak daripada catatan ialah daripada Amerika. Itu sebab kita notice dalam kita punya website, viewers banyak daripada Amerika.
Speaking to the media at the Asian International Arbitration Centre in Kuala Lumpur on Friday, Datuk Seri Azalina stated that the government believed British Global Litigation Fund, called Therium Capital Management Limited, was backing the purported heirs of the now-defunct Sulu Sultanate. She had also ordered the Attorney General's chambers to get in touch with Therium, including requesting for disclosure of the agreement between Therium and the claimants. She also described the group's demand for $14.9 billion from Malaysia via arbitration process as a new form of war. The minister also assured that Malaysia will be on the offensive and does not rule out the possibility of suing the Sulu group due to the losses suffered as a result of their legal pursuit. In February, Datuk Sri Azalina revealed that the government had spent 31 million ringgit on legal costs with regards to the claims made by the self-proclaimed Sulu heirs between November 2019 and January this year. The implementation of a minimum wage of 1,500 ringgit for employers with fewer than 5 workers will be enforced starting Saturday. An earlier deadline was set by the government at the end of last year, but micro-enterprises were allowed to defer the implementation of the new minimum wage for up to 6 months, compared to the previously set date of January 1st. The new ruling applies to all sectors, including agriculture, farming and manufacturing, except for domestic services and apprenticeships. The implementation of the new minimum wage policy was approved by the government on March 19, 2022, and was gazetted on April 27th of the same year. The Minimum Wage Order 2022 was subsequently enforced on May 1st, 2022, with a monthly wage rate of 1,500 ringgit for all sectors, regardless of the region. However, Human Resources Minister V. Sivakumar said the government had allowed a deferment for small businesses after taking into account their readiness, as well as the views of various stakeholders who were expected to face economic and financial challenges in the coming year. When we return, British Environment Minister resigns. Stay with us.
Penduduk dibelenggu masalah bekalan air sejak 6 tahun lalu.
Tak selesai tahun 2017 sehingga sekarang lah. Yang apa yang kita perhatikan, permasalahan ini tidak pernah selesai.
Air mineral terpaksa dibeli gara-gara tiada lori hantar bekalan air kepada penghuni.
Kami tidak pernah menerima sebarang tangki lori yang menghantar air masuk ke rumah kami untuk menolong kami lah.
Saksikan laporannya dalam Aduan Rakyat Sabtu ini di Buletin Utama TV3.
From the foreign front. Consumers in Singapore will pay more for electricity in the July-September quarter, with the tariff increasing by an average of 1.2% from the previous quarter. This is the first time it has risen after 3 consecutive quarters of decreasing. As for households, the electricity tariff before goods and services tax, GST, will increase from 27.43 cents to 27.74 cents per kilowatt hour. While taking into account the GST rate of 8% since January 1st, the new tariff will be 29.96 cents, up from 29.62 cents between April and June. It was also announced that the gas tariff for households after GST will increase by 0.23 cents per kilowatt hour, from 21.68 cents to 21.91 cents. The revised tariff after GST is 23.66 cents. The changes will be effective from July 1st to September 30th. British International Environment Minister Zac Goldsmith on Friday resigned, saying Britain had lost its claim to a global leadership role on climate, as Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was uninterested in environmental issues. In his resignation letter posted on Twitter, Goldsmith accused Sunak of being simply uninterested in the environment for causing paralysis on the issues within Whitehall. This echoes a report published earlier this week by the government's climate advisors, who said Britain had lost its position as a global leader on climate action and was not doing enough to meet its mid-century net zero target. Goldsmith is seen as an ally of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, placing him on the opposite side to Sunak of a deep divide in the ruling Conservative Party. It was understood that Goldsmith's resignation came a day after the Privileges Committee named him as one of the politicians who had undermined its work on whether Johnson misled Parliament. The Saudi Health Ministry on Thursday reported more than 2,000 people have suffered heat stress during the Hajj pilgrimage after temperatures soared to 48 degrees Celsius during the annual rites. Officials said about 1,700 heat stress cases were recorded on Thursday alone, as huge numbers of pilgrims remain at the holy sites, a day after the main rituals finished, added to the 287 reported earlier. The real figure for heat stress, which includes heat stroke, exhaustion, cramps and rashes, is probably far higher, as many sufferers were not admitted to hospitals or clinics. This has since forced the officials to issue warnings to pilgrims to adhere to safety precautions, including staying out of the sun and drinking plenty of water in order to avoid the risk of heat stress and heat stroke. The pilgrims are also urged to use umbrellas, at the same time avoid exhausting themselves with excessive movement, such as standing in lines for long periods while visiting the holy sites. Over in Mexico, at least 112 people have died over the past 2 weeks due to heat-related causes, as temperatures climbed close to 50 degrees Celsius in parts of the country. A 3-week-long heat wave in June strained the energy grid with record demand, forcing authorities to suspend classes in some areas and leaving many Mexicans sweltering. According to the Health Ministry on Thursday, over 2/3 of the deaths came the week of June 18th to 24th, with remainders from the previous week. Nearly all the deaths were attributed to heat stroke, with a handful from dehydration, and around 64% of the deaths occurred in northern state of Nuevo León. In recent days, temperatures have fallen as the rainy season has brought much-needed precipitation. However, some northern cities are still seeing high temperatures. French President Emmanuel Macron called a new government emergency meeting on Friday after a third night of violent clashes between protesters and police in cities including Paris, Marseille, Lyon, Toulouse and Lille. Around 40,000 police and gendarmes were deployed in several cities on Thursday night, nearly 4 times the number mobilized on Wednesday. However, despite the massive security deployment, violence and damage were reported in multiple areas, leading to 667 arrested and 249 cops injured. Police sources said that rather than pitch battles between protesters and the authorities, the night was marked by pillaging of shops and public buildings, including a police station, an elementary school, and a district office, which were set on fire. France has been rocked by protests since a black teen was shot point blank on Tuesday, feeding into the long-standing complaints of racial police violence in the country. This time in the Philippines, a journalist was among 5 people wounded in an ambush in Manila on Friday, the latest of a long list of violence against journalists in the archipelagic state. According to District Police Chief Brigadier General Nicholas Tor, a photographer for the Manila-based tabloid, Joshua Abiad was wounded when gunmen in a car attacked his vehicle. Abiad and the other injured people, including his child and brother, are currently receiving treatment. Police have not named a suspect, but believe the attack to be linked to Abiad's work, documenting a deadly 7-year-old crackdown on illegal drugs. The Philippines is one of the most dangerous places in the world for journalists, ranking 7th in the Committee to Protect Journalists Impunity Index, with most killings often going unpunished. However, it is rare for journalists to be attacked in Manila. Sports tennis, the Eastbourne Rothesay International. Francis Gregoire Barrère reached his first ATP Tour semi-final with a straight-set victory over 8th seed Miomir Kecmanovic. Playing against one of tournament's favourite, Barrère was forced to battle hard before taking the first set 7-5. The second set was tougher as Kecmanovic tried to push his way back into the game, but the 29-year-old world number 57 Barrère remained focused to seal a 7 win and a slot into the semi-final. Waiting for Barrère is Tommy Paul. The second seed advanced to his third semi-final of 2023 with victory in an All-American last 8 match against J.J. Wolf. The second-seeded American edged past Wolf 6-4, 4-6, 7-6. And the Australian Open semi-finalist will continue his bid for his first title of the year. Still on tennis, the Mallorca Championships. Adrian Manarino claimed a spot in the last 4 following a straight-set victory over fellow Frenchman Corentin Moutet. Manarino had to be at its best to win the first set 7-5. Moutet then lost his steam in the second set, giving Manarino an easy path to a 6-2 win in the decider. He will next play Yannick Hanfmann for a place in the final. Seven factories destroyed in fire. The details after this short break. continues. 7 factories and a warehouse were razed after a fire broke out at the Budiman Industrial Estate in Cheras, Selangor on early Friday morning. State Fire and Rescue Department Director Wan Mat Razali Wan Ismail said no victims were injured in the 2 a.m. incident. Wan Mat Razali said a distress call was received by the department at 2:15 a.m. and 48 firefighters were deployed to the scene. Upon arrival, the firemen found that the blaze had engulfed 4 factories in the area and the flames were spreading rapidly to other factories as they were built close to one another. The affected factories also have a high fire load because they were packed with flammable materials. The 8 premises that were destroyed were a storage space for items used in events, a plastic goods factory, a house model factory, a tobacco factory, a furniture and mattress factory, a car audio factory, and a cat food factory. The blaze was finally brought under control at 4:37 a.m. The cause of the fire and total losses incurred were still being investigated. In Kelantan, a woman was found drowned while her husband and nephew went missing after falling from a boat in Sungai Kelantan at Kampung Kutan Hulu, Tumpat on Friday. It was reported that the victims were taking a leisurely boat ride when the incident occurred at about 6:45 p.m. The deceased was identified as Nur Awadah Sulong, 30, while the missing victims are one Muhammad Najmi, 1 Taib, and Amrullah Fitri Effendi, 30 and 10 respectively. It was understood that the boat belonged to Najmi. The couple's 14-month-old daughter, Wan Nur Amina, who was also on the vessel, survived the incident. The body of the victim was later sent to the Tumpat Hospital for post-mortem. In Perak, a man was charged at the Ipoh Magistrate Court on Friday with the murder of his girlfriend last weekend. However, no plea was recorded from the accused, as murder cases are under the purview of the High Court. 23-year-old Saini Irwandi Sofian Sani was alleged to have murdered 24-year-old Syahwani Abdullah at a shop lot in Taman Song Chun between June 24th and 25th. The charge under the Penal Code carries the death penalty upon conviction. It was reported on Sunday that the victim was believed to have been murdered by her boyfriend, who was allegedly under the influence of drugs. Magistrate Jessica Dimas fixed August 30th for mention of the case. As part of the Eid al-Adha celebration, hundreds of mosques and community centers around the nation carried out the ritual slaughter of animals or kurban and distribute the meat to the poor. One of them was Surah Al-Muhajirin, Bandar Sri Damansara, where 300 community members joined hands in the kurban event. With that, I'm Liyana Hassanel. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.